So, ladies and gentlemen, trans and non-binary punks of all ages and denominations, welcome back to another episode of Not Just a Phase, and thanks for joining us in our fourth season. If you're new here, I'm going to get this out of the way really quick. We're online at notjustaphase.net. We're on Instagram and TikTok at notjustaphase worldwide. We're on Twitter at NJAP worldwide, and we currently have a Patreon that has a lot of the video podcasts and bonus content that we offer to you as long as you're subscribed. If you want to help support the expansion of the podcast and the blog spot and all the other content we continue to create for you, please go ahead and give us a subscribe. It's really cheap. We also have a free level where you do get access to some of the content we offer. As always, we want to give a lot of love and a huge shout out to our video editing team and Blocko Media, who are also the boys for Majula Lunar. Please make sure to check out both their work with Blocko Media and Majula Lunar, as they're both doing amazing video editing work for us, and they also make incredible music. So today on the pod, the East Coast legend himself joins us, a prolific force in the scene. You may be familiar with our guest today from his absolute stack of legendary records he's put out with prolific bands that he has played in, including, but not limited to, You and I, The Assistant, The Ship Will Sink, In First Person, Capacities, and Lacrima, to name a few. More recently, he's been wreaking some havoc in Spirit Killer, Hundreds of AU, and of course, playing with Seisha while they tour. So welcome to the show today. Thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. So for the listeners at home, would you mind stating your name and your primary instrument that you play?
Yeah, my name is Thomas Schlatter. I currently play guitar in three bands, as you just talked about, but over the years I've played bass in a few bands and have even attempted to play drums a couple times. Hello, this is Tom from the band Hundreds of AU. You're listening to Not Just a Phase. This is our song called Year 2.
Very cool. Thanks so much for coming on. And yeah, three bands. When you said three bands, I looked, because I was checking out what you were active in, and I was like, oh, I was like, man, three bands. I don't know where you find the time at all. And you're touring and actively playing shows, so it's like just insane to me.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of fun, I'm sure too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely, I can't lie. There's definitely times where I question like how much longer I can do this. Tomorrow's my birthday, and I won't talk about how old I'm going to turn, but, uh, yeah, there's definitely times where I question whether I can do it. And then by
Mhm.
like last weekend or 2 weekends ago, we went out on a 3 day trip with hundreds of AU, and
Mhm.
by the first night, I'm doing the first like 3.5 hour drive to Brooklyn, and I'm saying to myself like,
Yeah.
how am I gonna pull this off tonight? And then by the second, by the next day driving to Pittsburgh, I'm just like, this is great. So I think it's just you got to get over that first initial like doubt that you have, and then you're home free. So yeah,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
that's amazing. And thank you so much for spending tonight. I don't know how you feel about birthdays, but some people like celebrate the whole week or whatever. But happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Cheers to
Thanks.
another year.
Hopefully, yes.
Yes. So we always like to ask, since we ourselves are a podcast, do you listen to like any podcasts in your free time, like driving to work or like while you're on tour or anything like that?
Yeah, so I I recently and this is it's going to be very embarrassing to say, but I recently got a phone with an unlimited data plan.
Nice.
And so all of the things that I was listening to on NPR, like This American Life and Fresh Air,
Mhm.
Don't Tell Me, that I would have to like tune in at a certain time to
Right.
actually listen to. I'm now listening to like at will when I want to on my long drives to band practice or so those are great. I really enjoy that quite a bit. Um,
That's awesome.
in terms of podcasts, like I do love Edie's podcast from Middleman.
Yeah. Everything
That's
remade, right?
yeah, it's very enjoyable because it's like a lot of people that I know or a lot of people that I've seen their bands and have always been curious about them. So that's always great. My friend Ray does a podcast called 100 Words or Less,
Mm.
and he always has guests in kind of the same way, like people I've run into over the past 30 years and have just kind of been curious about them. So yeah. And then, of course, I do listen to Not Just a Face as well. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, well, we really appreciate that. That's huge. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because that is kind of our next question is like, did you listen to any of our podcasts going in? So you kind of know what to expect a little bit.
Yeah. Can I tell the story about when I first met you?
Yeah.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, we can go into that.
So I've been listening to Not Just a Phase for quite a while, and I did not put two and two together that you are the same person, Elias, who
Yeah.
came to the UNI reunion in New Jersey in 2011, I believe it was.
Yeah, it was RTF Fest.
Yes. Elias got up on stage during a song to sing along, and it's on video if you want to go up and check it out. During the song "When We Were One," during the sing along part, Elias begins to sing along, and he grabs the neck of his t-shirt and just tears like Hulk Hogan style. Well, that's kind of bad to say now because it's Hulk Hogan.
Kind of sucks now, yeah.
Yeah. Let's just say in a very intense way, Elias tears his shirt down the middle and just like tears it off. And he's on stage and the shirt is just flying off and he's singing along. And it just became this very iconic moment from that show that everybody in New Jersey talked about because Elias was this like mysterious person who just like flew here from California, which thank you. It totally blew my mind that somebody flew from California to see this reunion. But you just flew in, you came to the show, and then you left. And like you were just this like mysterious, iconic person who like everybody watched this video and was like, "Did you see the kid tear off his shirt? Oh my God." Like it was such a big deal. And then, however many years later, what is this, like 13 years later, me and you are both at the Metro in Chicago
Yeah.
backstage after Stacia and Page 99 played. And you come up to me and you introduce yourself and you remind me that you were the same Elias. And I was totally dumbstruck that this person I've been listening to host Not Just a Phase was the guy who ripped off his shirt. I was like, this is amazing. So yeah.
Yeah.
So and it's just so wild to me. So but you're all grown up now and it seems like you are doing amazing. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, that was an insane full circle moment. I reminded you, and then you told me how like people still talk about that, and that blew my mind because
absolutely.
it felt like such like a one-off thing, you know? Like I just like flew out to the show and I saw you guys, which like I never thought I was gonna get to see you. So of course, as soon as I it was announced, like I was like all over figuring out how to get to the gig, as some would say. And that's actually the show where it established my very strong love and respect for the New Jersey scene. Shout out
Oh,
Michael Weintraub. He played in Old Wounds,
in Old
and
Wounds. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and he put me up that whole weekend. And
Oh, wow.
oh yeah, I'll always be grateful to him. He was a wonderful friend. Um, yeah, and all the
Awesome.
people I met, Gabe, um, Patrick Garrity, shout out PG,
Yeah.
RTF Records forever.
Hell
Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, that was that was an insane weekend, and that's an insane thing that I get reminded of randomly every now and again. Um, but yeah, that was awesome. Seeing you guys play was incredible.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
and we'll as we move through your very prolific career, we'll circle back to RTF weekend when we talk about the history of your projects and all that. But
Sure.
like I said, it gave me such a like a strong and profound love for New Jersey, the scene you guys have, the people in it, and everything. So you're from New Jersey, you claim and rep it. Like what's the scene look like? Give people who don't know much about the New Jersey scene like a snapshot of what's going on right
So I actually moved out of New Jersey 10 years ago.
now. Oh shit.
Um, I moved to upstate New York, where my wife got a job up here. Leaving New Jersey was really hard,
Yeah.
um, because of everything that you just described. Um, there was such a reliable and open sort of
Hmm.
hardcore and punk community that's really only gotten better and sort of has grown quite a bit since I left. And it was hard. It was really hard to leave.
Yeah.
Which is why I drive back there like multiple times a month sometimes to play shows and have band practice. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Um
Then
yeah.
maybe moving that question a little bit. How do you is there like much you can say about whatever scene exists in upstate-ish New York? Jeff from Sunfloor actually told me to say hello to you from
Oh,
Utica. So
awesome.
I know that he's holding it down in like kind of central upper New York a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Um moving to the Albany area 10 years ago, it was a lot of people tell me it was an extremely low time
Mm,
for like hardcore and punk and stuff like that up in the Albany scene. The kind of like the people that I would meet would tell me, "Oh man, it was so good here in the 90s and in the early 2000s. You just moved here at a really bad time." Um, but it's funny because I would talk to people about, music and I would mention, some of the bands I was in and nobody really had heard of any of the bands I was in
mm,
or any of the bands I liked. They'd be like, "Nah, I don't really know any of those bands." It just kind of seemed like screamo, that sort of chaotic screamo hardcore stuff had never made it to this area. And now
mm,
that I think about it, like at that point I had been touring and playing in bands for since I was like 16. And I moved there when I was 36 years old. So it was like 20 years of playing. And I had never played this area. Like I had played Utica and Syracuse and Rochester, which are all like anywhere from 2 to 3 hours away from here.
Hmm.
I had never played the Albany area, and when we moved up here, I always wondered why. And it just seemed like the whole screamo thing just never made it up here. Like,
Wow.
from what I'm told, there was like a pretty big power violence scene and a very big sort of like, I don't know what you'd call like tough guy hardcore scene, kind of like moshy hardcore scene, which is
Right.
still really big up here. Um, so there's not really like a lot of stuff that like I'm necessarily identifying with. But there right now, like there are some bands that I like and some bands I go out to see. So for instance, there's a great band from here called Halo Bite that I really like a lot. And we just did like a few days of shows with them and got to know them more as like really good people. So I feel really good about like going out and supporting them. And it's interesting because there are things are kind of opening up now, and there's more younger kids sort of
Mhm.
doing shows and sort of figuring out that you don't need to have like a show at some club with a stage and a sound person. Like they're realizing it the same way that we did as kids. Like they're doing
Right.
shows at like the back room of a restaurant or in the basement of a house. And it's really cool to see like I don't know, as an older person to watch like these young kids sort of put it together. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's awesome when you see such like a quiet period because it like when you move there, it was like about 10 years ago, 2014. That is kind of actually when like screamo or like this form of like chaotic emotive hardcore was kind of like entering its dead period a little bit. It was starting to taper off, and then things were kind of quiet. It felt like for a few years, and at least that's how it felt out here for a little while. After all the other bands kind of either broke up or like moved on or did whatever. So that tracks. But like watching everything kind of burst back to life after the pandemic, and like all these kids have discovered all these shows and music online. It's just incredible. It's like
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's just truly amazing. So I really want, so I think the biggest thing that I'd love to do is kind of like walk through like how you got into punk, like where did it all start, and then we can kind of take it from there with like some of your work that you've done over the years.
Okay. Well like I guess like the earliest sort of entry into punk was when I was in 8th grade. That's when Nirvana put out Nevermind. And it's I feel like an old person trying to explain the cultural significance that that album had at the time on the musical landscape because I
Right.
think a lot of like young people hear that album and are like, "What? It's like a punk album with like 4 chord songs, you know? Like, okay, like it's good, but you know, it's nothing crazy." And I think it sounds to me sort of like when my mom would describe what the Beatles were like. And
Yeah.
like to me, I'd listen to the Beatles and just be like, this is kind of lame, mom. You know, like
Yeah.
um so but at the time in the music landscape, like there was nothing in the mainstream that sounded like um me and my friends playing in a garage and like Nirvana looked like me and my friends and they sounded like me and my friends. Like they just played like 4 chord punk and they didn't have like flashy clothes on or anything, just like jeans and t-shirts on. And you could tell that like some of them probably had skated and, you know, were probably into that scene and stuff. And it became interesting to see ourselves portrayed that way, sort of like, oh wow, like you could do a band and like not be like a shredder on guitar, or you could do a band and not really be able to sing all that well, but like you could still do it. And I think like at that point, like when music kind of became like a bigger part of my identity, I was like playing guitar and started playing with some friends who used to skateboard with me, and we met these older kids who were into like punk, like real punk. They wore like their like leather jackets with their Sex Pistols t-shirts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they introduced us to like the Misfits and Black Flag and all that kind of stuff. Ironically, one of the guys who was like instrumental in that meeting is this guy named Michael Ramirez, and he plays guitar in a band called Kirkby Kiss now. And hundreds of AU plays with Kirkby Kiss all the time. So it's funny. Like we were young kids back then, and now we're in our, I'll say late 40s, and we're still playing shows together. And so it's
Yeah.
interesting. He like introduced me to all that stuff, and I'm only there because he introduced me to that stuff.
Man,
Um,
that's wild.
but that's like the basics of being a teenager in like the late 80s, early 90s is like you're skateboarding and you're listening to punk and you're not really punk and skateboarding haven't hit the mainstream yet in the way that they will when Tony Hawk Pro Skater comes out in the mid 2000s or whatever. And they're not hitting the mainstream in the way that like they do when like, you know, Green Day puts out their third album or something like that. Like at this particular point in time, punk and skateboarding are still very much like if you're into those things, you must be a bad kid. You must have problems at home. Um, you must be kind of like on the fringes, so to speak. And so being a punk and and being into skateboarding at that particular time was not looked upon like as a positive thing. Uh,
Yeah.
and so we all kind of like stuck together within our group. And so the kids you skated with are the kids you started a band with, you know what I mean? And probably the kids that you hung out with all the time. And we just tried to find bands that sort of like emulated that same thing, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a special time because it was like, you know, before you would even think of like a band like Green Day having like a gold album or
Yeah.
even fathom a band like, I don't know, like for instance, like Stacia playing to 1,200 people like that, like you wouldn't think of punk bands doing those things back then. And
Yeah.
so it all seemed very fringe and very sort of like it was ours. And we were just these like kids making the best out of what we had. And it felt great. It was a great time, you know.
Yeah. No, of course. I mean, it's hard to impress upon like maybe, like to kids who like to give them the context of the idea of like what it was like to see Nirvana on MTV or something when nothing like that had really existed on MTV at all. It was like before that it was like Elton John or Mick Jagger and David
Yes.
Bowie like dancing in the street, right? Like it's
Yes. Yeah.
textually like it's kind of hard to tell them that like this was just such a mold breaking thing that happened that like it feels normal now because counterculture and all that stuff and everything is like you said has become very popular and become a lot more accepted and because of its widespread nature is now like something that everyone has a lot more access to. But when you were in that time, it's just like, oh shit, like they're letting the freaks on TV. Like that's crazy, you know?
Yeah. It was and it's so that the jump from, listening to Nirvana and Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Jr. and like all these bands that I found out later, all three of those bands had like roots in the hardcore and punk scene. And they were playing this like experimental alternative music that, they were making a career out of just barely until Nirvana got big and then brought all these bands with them.
Mhm.
Um, there's not a huge jump when you're listening to like that sort of alternative rock, and then you go to like a basement show and you see sort of like early 90s like ebullition hardcore. Like so another person who got me into this stuff is another person named Mike Mike Shepard, who is the other guitar player to the band Kirkby Kiss. He was doing shows at his house in my town, and he was like probably about 5 years older than me. And I went to a show at his house, and I was seeing all these like early sort of ebullition-ish bands like Ho's Got Cable and Harriet the Spy. Um, and there, it's not if you go listen to those bands and then you listen to like Sonic Youth or Dinosaur Jr., it's not a huge jump. Like, so for somebody who was already into alternative rock and was also listening to Black Flag and like the Misfits and stuff like that, to go see a band like Ho's Got Cable or Harriet the Spy or Still Life or like something like that wasn't a huge jump. And then it was also like I was seeing bands in a basement for the first time. And
Yeah.
so like there's a band 3 feet away from you, like playing, and it's loud and it's hitting you like the air that those amps and those drums push is like hitting you in the face. And it's to experience that for the first time is like I can't really explain it. Um, I had been to shows at like clubs before, you know what I mean, where like, oh, that person's on a 4 foot high stage and like there's a light show and it like looks like MTV.
Right.
But going to a basement show and just being there and getting like hit in the face with this and like and seeing these bands like sweat all over themselves and like there was something just like, okay, like this is where it's going to be. Like this is where I'm going to like if I'm going to like start playing in bands and I'm going to like kind of make a thing of this, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I think I sort of made the decision there. Like,
Yeah. Okay. I mean that, yeah. I mean, I bet you can't find anyone who's in the scene now or was in the scene or whatever that if you ask them about the first time they ever saw a DIY show or like basement show or anything, couldn't also like fail to feel like they could capture like that feeling like really well. You know, it's just something
yeah,
that has to be experienced. Like
yeah,
tell people
definitely.
about it, but the very alchemical process of like what it's like for you personally is like it's not
Yes.
really translatable to language. So I totally get
It
that.
it was very strange, and maybe we'll talk about this later on, but um when I was living in New Brunswick with Jeff from the band Thursday, and like Thursday kind of got big, and one of the things that like outlets like MTV or alternative press would try to like romanticize was this concept of the New Brunswick basement and like like you know how like they would try to describe this like you know this concept and I just thought it was so weird that like this that there was ah, this kind of like a half-baked sort of thing but it struck me as strange for people to use like hey they used to play basements as like a marketing
Yeah.
like bullet point, you know what I mean, because it was
Yeah.
like like I don't know how that description of a band is like going to hold up to somebody that hasn't experienced that.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
um
It's like them trying
yeah
to bottle air and be like,
yeah yeah
look at it, look at, isn't it cool?
exactly.
It's like, I don't know, man. We're all breathing. Like we all have the
Yeah,
capability. Like
yes.
you have to,
And it's like you think about the average like 16-year-old kid at home who hasn't been to a punk show and is like, well, my parents have a basement. Like, what? I don't understand. What are you talking about?
yeah,
So yeah, it was always funny to me when like this romanticism of like playing a basement show sort of like kind of hit the mainstream a little bit, and it was
yeah,
kind of like, you kind of had to be there, you know, like,
yeah. It really, yeah. As the cliche as it is like very much like you kind of just you have to be there.
yeah,
And I would qualify that with like a lot of people say like, oh, you weren't there, like you don't really understand it, and it's like that time, that moment, that band, yeah, but like you can have your version of that. Like you just have to be there.
yes,
And
yeah.
now we live in a time where like you really can be there if you want to. Like it's incredible. So, you're getting into the punk scene, you're seeing these live bands, you're like getting the itch, right? Like you want to start
Oh
playing music
yeah.
with your friends and stuff. So where do we go from there to like instill? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, there's a few jumps. Like I was playing in like a fast hardcore band in high school, and I got really into like older, faster hardcore that was like um I mean I was already like a quote unquote like sober person.
Mm,
So this idea of like straight edge and like sobriety being introduced as like something to be like I don't say proud of, but just sort of like to claim, I guess. To unabashedly be able to say I'm a sober person was as a 15-year-old kid was like that was again like that was something I can't explain that I felt so like seen at that point. Um
mm,
and I think that that took over a lot of my musical taste for a little while. I was very much listening to Minor Threat and Youth of Today, Uniform Choice, like all these like California straight edge bands and like Washington D.C. and New York bands and stuff like that. I was listening to like a lot of that stuff, and I had started a
mm.
band that sounded like that, and everybody sort of like knew this part of my identity because I would say I probably was like very excited about it. Um, excuse me. I don't think I was necessarily like quote unquote like militant about it or um I don't know
Like hard
necessarily in
hard line,
a
as they say in some cases.
yeah. I mean like there wasn't a necessary like I'm right, you're wrong sort of thing, but it was more just like a um um like I said before, just being able to like unabashedly like claim who I was. And so that being part of my identity, um when like I was in high school playing in this fast hardcore band, and when that band came to an end, there was this vegan straight edge sort of like moshy, not moshy, but like metalcore sort of band in town that were like losing their guitar player, and they were like, "Hey, that guy Tom, like he's straight edge. Like, I wonder if he's like vegan or vegetarian." Like, so they found me and asked me to join the band. And actually, the person that asked me to join that band was this guy named Natal. And Natal is the vocalist to the band Kirkby Kiss. So basically, you got three guys who ended up in this band Kirkby Kiss in 2024, who all were very instrumental in getting me into different aspects of punk.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, they're all just like, yeah, so it's a trip. I know we're doing this journey in sort of like a David Lynchian like linear time jump here, but it's like we keep going back and forth. But yeah, like these three guys from this band Kirkby Kiss who play shows now and stuff like that, like they all like knew each other back then. I think like they knew of each other, but like weren't necessarily hang out or friends. But they all touched my life in very specific ways and introduced me to different aspects of punk, which really kind of set the tone for things. So it's like I got into this band, and they're like, here, listen to Earth Crisis, listen to Strife, listen to Snapcase, like learn how to play music like this and join our band. And I was like, okay, sure. And so I joined this band, and we get asked to play this show out in Pennsylvania, which is like an hour and a half from us, with like 108
Damn.
and Endeavor and Mouthpiece and a bunch of other bands that like I ended up really liking now. Um, and we go to play, and there's these kids up front, and they're really into it. And after the show, they come up and talk to us, and they're like, "Hey, we're in this band called Instill." And from that point on, I was hanging out with those guys like all the time. Uh, that's I think that show was in June, and we pretty much spent like the summer with those guys. Um, by the end of the summer, um, they I think the drummer went on vacation, and he sent a postcard to the rest of the band and said, I was on vacation and I was just thinking about it, and we should ask Tom to play second guitar for Instill. And they showed me the postcard and they're like, "Do you want to join the band?" And I was like, "All right, let's do it." And so, yeah, started playing in Instill, and that I think with Instill, the concept of like the genre of emo at the time was not anything like what people describe it as today. I
Right.
think we were listening to like Indian Summer and Endpoint and Falling Forward and Empathy and Mineral and like all these bands. And but we all still really liked like, you know, our like hardcore and punk stuff too. And I think like Instill was this amalgamation of sort of like we were an emo band that was just kind of like loud and screamy, and
Yeah.
we didn't know what that meant at the time. We didn't know what it was going to go on to mean, um but that was sort of the beginning of that, was trying to do something that sounded like Indian Summer, Puritan, Anasarca, like all that stuff.
Yeah. Man, that's incredible. And that's kind of like the a little bit of the genesis of what eventually like gets you and I going, right?
Yeah, so like and still breaks up maybe like a year later, 2 years later or something, and John and Justin and I still want to play together, and we're very much getting into like heavier stuff. We're all really into, like I said, like Puritan and Groundwork and Reversal of Man and like all these bands, but we're all still very much into, you know, stuff like Indian Summer and Mineral, and then there's all like the weird stuff coming from San Diego that we liked, like Swing Kids and Guyver One and like Portraits of Past and like all those bands. And so we go to start like a new band, and that was kind of the idea, was to take all that stuff and sort of jam it all together. You know,
Yeah.
there wasn't like a roadmap for what would become screamo at that point. It was just kind of like
Right.
you you were playing this music that was kind of aggressive, but not aggressive in any sort of like masculine posturing kind of way. It was emotional, but not melodic. It was uh, not sticking to any real one playbook. Like we didn't have like verse, chorus, verse, chorus. I think at the time nobody really knew what to make of it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And yeah, it was like unique at the time, I think. And it wasn't until we found bands like Seisha, and States of Seeds, the Cable Car Theory, iRobot, like this sort of like little group of New York and Long Island and New Jersey bands that were kind of doing something similar, that we kind of found our niche in our group, and we'd end up playing with all those bands a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of it's just fascinating to see how like, we get from punk and hardcore and everything. And that's where a lot of people start, right? And then they find their way maybe to like emotive hardcore or whatever. But to be in a band and be young and to just like kind of play what you want and just like, I like these things. And so we emulate some of these things, but it also comes from, a personal place of like what you want to put out stylistically. Like, some of the most incredible stuff is just not made with any game plan of any kind. I mean, I know everyone, it's and for good reason. It's been talked to death, but like the whole thing with Slint, like
Oh
Slint, like
yeah.
those guys were kids. They just went into a basement and they just recorded what they wanted to, and they wound up having like probably one of the more profound like effects on alternative music, especially ours, like our style that we love, than like anyone
I
could
think
have. predicted, you know?
Like I can't imagine what it would have been like to grow up at a time where those things were sort of a little bit more defined. So like I don't know. Like when I talk to like young kids, they tell me that like they're, that they got into like Under Oath or something like that,
Yeah.
where it was like there was this like defined thing of like that like the mainstream was trying to push as screamo.
Hmm.
That was like this sort of like, I don't know, I don't want to say refined, but just sort of like sanitized version of sort of like what was going on in the 90s. And like I wonder, it must be strange to like have grown up at a time when like all those things were all of a sudden defined. And I feel really fortunate to have grown up when they weren't defined in this like wild west of like aggressive music that like nobody knew what they were doing. Kind of like what you just said, like everybody just went into a basement and just kind of figured it out. So no one was walking into a basement and saying like, I have a bunch of like octave chords in a row. That's how you play screamo. Like like
Right.
nobody, there was no term, there was none of that, so nobody really knew like what that was, like I
Yeah.
think Portraits of Past is like another example, like what you were talking about. It was like fast drums, but then like this sort of like non-distorted guitar with like reverb on it that was super melodic, and then screaming over top of that. And it was just kind of like, there's nothing like this. This is, and in 2024, I could probably list off like 10 bands right now that sound like that, especially if we're getting into like European screamo. Um, but in 1996 or 1995, I'm trying to remember when I first heard that. I was just dumbfounded of like how unique that was and how it just blew my mind, like
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
It must be stupefying. I mean, it's like, I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
it's like whenever someone discovers screamo on their own, just like organically or randomly, it very much feels like wow, it's like this is for me. And like you get to have like that selfish moment of like, I must be the only person, like when you're young and like everything
Oh
kind of
yeah.
feels about you and you're like, wow, this is like just for me. Like no one else knows about this. Like it's special to me. And some people hang on to that for a long time and say what you will about that, but like that feeling is a very real thing that I'm sure many can attest to. And Portraits of Past, like people having that with Stacia or like Page 99 or like To Dream of Autumn or like, any X number of crazy bands that are both loud and aggressive and emotional is like a very real thing. So, and for it to be Portraits of
Absolutely.
Past, which by the way, I would love to just put this out there. I still think Portraits of Past is very underrated. I wouldn't mind a few more Portraits of Past clones out there.
I
Like,
mean, we would talk about Portraits of Past as if like, because we like when we were kids, we didn't get to see them. I didn't get to see Portraits of Past until they did that batch of reunions. Trying to think of when that
it's
was.
like late 2000s, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I got to see them in New York at one of those
Shit.
uh dates that they did. And I that was like, when I talk to kids now who come up to me and are like, I never thought I'd see Seisha. It's like that's how I felt when I saw Portraits of Past. So it's like I know exactly how you feel. And so I'm not gonna like cool guy these people or be an asshole to them, like, oh whatever, like it's just like because that's I was you going to see Portraits of Past in 2009 or whatever, like um totally, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And the craziest thing is that they put that EP out too when they came back
Yes,
together. And
which I think is great.
it's incredible. Like I would say,
Yeah.
like it's almost like they didn't miss a beat, which is
Yeah.
insane because it's like
Yes.
15 years or more. Like that was astounding.
Yes.
Yeah,
The like the guitar work on that EP is it's great.
it's
It's
sublime.
so good.
It's
Like,
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I just couldn't. I'm still in awe of it. It's been like I don't know, like 14 years or something since it came out. But no, absolutely. And yeah. So getting back to like your movement, and so you and I is happening is forming. is
Yeah.
also kind
Yeah.
of playing shows and everything. And we're gonna jump a little bit to the end of you and I because you mentioned that you were living with Jeff Rickley. There's that video that is kind of somewhat sub famous. I don't know how much people like know about or do or don't. Like for when I was like learning about you and I and like screamo and like other people I knew in the scene, they would be like, "Dude, you got to watch this video. It's crazy." It's a they, I is it true? It's in Jeff Rickley's parents' basement. That was like one of your final shows or like one of the shows you guys played.
No, no. So Jeff lived at 331 Somerset Street, which was where he lived while he was going to college his
Mm.
freshman year.
Okay.
And I lived across town at a on Huntington Street, which was like across town. And like Jeff would have you and I come and play at his house, and I would have the Thursday come and play at my house.
Hmm.
Sorry, I should have prefaced this whole conversation by saying I have a speech impediment. I totally forgot to do that. So,
No, you don't even have to worry about it, Tom.
um,
We're just happy that
so,
you're here and you're telling us all this cool shit. Like,
yeah, so like, we would do shows like for each other's bands or with each other's bands. And when you and I decided we were going to call it quits, I called up Jeff and I said, your basement is like one of the larger basements that we have or like in town. It was
it
certainly
looks
like,
huge.
yeah, it
Like in
was
the
it was
video, it
like
was
two or three
crazy.
times the size of like our basement that we had across town.
It was like almost a VFW hall. Like,
Yeah, and so I said, Jeff, is it cool if we do the show there? And he's like, yeah. And like at the time, like we had played a couple of shows where it seemed like, oh, people care. Okay, cool. There's like a lot of people here. It's crazy. Like, but it wasn't a usual thing. And man, I try to like it blows my mind how many people come to see screamo bands now. So like, um, yeah, we had met the guys from like Numares and Versus Self and like all those bands, and like and they were very casually talking about how like, oh yeah, we played Brooklyn. There was like 400 kids at the show. And like in 1998, if 400 kids came to a show, like that would be impossible. That would be absolutely fucking impossible. Like screamo bands at the most, I mean, there'd be if 120 kids came to a show, you would be like, what the fuck is going on?
yeah.
This is absolutely bonkers. Like
How could there be so many
in
cops here?
yeah, like so like it's tough. It's hard to explain to people. So like Jeff agreed to do the show, and the day of the show, I get to the house and there's like a line around the house. And we're like, what the fuck is this? And it was like, I think the last count was like 235 or something like that. Like
Uh,
235 people paid. And like in I think that was 1999. I was like, yeah, I believe it was 1999. At that particular point, like it blew our minds that like that many people would come see a screamo band in a basement.
that's
Like
insane.
that's just wild, Whereas like today, by today's standards, particularly like with this crop of like kind of like young bands, like they don't think twice about 250 people coming to their show. But
Yeah.
like in 1998, for us, that was like, wow, this is so it was nice to like see all these people that we had met over the years like come out to this and like come out to the show and say goodbye to us. And um so yeah, that was sort of an interesting thing. And I think also about 3 weeks before that, my lease was going to run out at my house that I was at across town, and Jeff had a room opening up at his house, and
Mm.
and Jeff asked me if I would move into that room, And so right after the show, maybe like 3 weeks after the show, I moved in with Jeff.
Wow. And
And
this was like 1999, 2000, like around there.
yeah.
Okay.
And so one of my first sort of jobs when I moved in was that like we had just had the show and our friend was standing behind the drums with a camera and he recorded the whole thing. And of course, at this point, there's no YouTube. There's no way to put things online. There's no streaming. If
Right.
you want to see this, you have to like get a copy of it on VHS. Like there's not even any DVDs to burn it to or anything like that. It's fucking VHS.
Yeah.
So I move in and I set up two VHS players and I'm pretty much like hit record, go to work, come back from work, switch the tape, hit record again, go to class, come back from class, switch the tape, hit record again, go to sleep. And I'm making like copy. I'm like a fucking machine, like because it was like people were writing to me from like all over the world. I think I sent one to Australia in like
Holy
the first
shit.
2 weeks. Um, and like Jeff was just like witnessing this, just like watching this. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Like, what's going on, man? What are all these video
Yeah,
tapes?
yeah, it was wild.
That's funny. So is it is it like while you're living there that you wind up getting on cross out the eyes? It's like
Oh no, that didn't happen. And so Jeff and I lived together for a year.
okay,
I started playing in a band called The Assistant at that point,
right.
and Jeff, when our lease ran out, that was right around when Thursday, I think, had decided, all right, that they were gonna try and like make a career out of being in the band,
Mhm.
and like I didn't know this because because like when they asked, so Jeff called me up and was like, "Hey, we got some parts that we need some screams on, and none of us can really scream very well. Can you come down?" And I was like, "Yeah," because it just kind of seemed like anything else. Like when your friend's band calls you and just says like, "Hey, do you want to come do like some spots uh, on a song?" Like you don't think of like oh this song is going to be on ESPN one day or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it was just like oh cool like somebody's going to press like 500 of their LP and they're going to play a basement and try to sell them like that. I
Yeah.
so when they give me a call to do this, I'm thinking of it like that. I'm not thinking
Right.
of it like thousands of copies of this are going to be pressed and like they're going to be used in fucking snowboarding videos and shit like that. Like I
Yeah. Like you're in Madden
like
04 all of a sudden. Like
yeah, yeah. So it was very casual, just kind of went down there and did what they asked me to do, and
right.
there was a little bit of like improv and stuff like that, and they ended up keeping the improv and but it was all, there wasn't this big thing like, oh, I'm going to do vocals on a Thursday record. Like
Right.
it was all very casual because it like they weren't at that point yet. And
Yeah. Waiting was
and
still
there
kind of
was
like the main record that they had and like all that
yeah,
going.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and while like waiting was popular around town and like kids were
Mhm.
coming to see them play, there was no inkling in my mind of like this band's gonna blow up and be on MTV next year. Like there was nothing like that.
Yeah.
Because
Uh,
they were a fucking like punk band playing in a basement, like there's so
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it's like, how do you predict that, kids on the internet are going to be trading the you and I discography and talking about how amazing it is, like not even like 8 years after you break up.
Yeah, right. Like it's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't control how things happen.
No,
So,
I can't.
um, so the assistant's happening. And then are you in the assistant, like kind of, and this ship will sink is starting to happen at the same time too?
No, so at the time I was my partner at the time was a woman named Lee, and I had met Lee. She had lived in Northeast Pennsylvania, and she had s- sang in a couple of bands, and we started to date, and she moved to New Jersey, And she was always talking about like when she moved to New Jersey, she wanted to start a band, and we had tried to start a band and just trying to get people to like be in the band and stuff. It was so we eventually like start the assistant, and um we sort of like, I don't know what the word was. This is probably like late 1999 that we start the assistant, and it's hard to explain again. It's definitely time and place, but in New Jersey, there were a lot of bands happening at that particular point in time that are huge now, but to us, they were just playing in basements, and but they were like pushing the envelope a lot. So we were
Right.
seeing like Dillinger Escape Plan and Burnt by the Sun and bands like that who were just like the local bands for us. Like they weren't huge bands yet.
Right.
And so in addition to like everything else we were into, now we were sort of like, oh, what if we took all that stuff and made it super technical? Like, wouldn't that be cool? and so
And
uh
it
and so
was.
and so that's kind of how the assistant sort of got its legs. I think furthermore, it was like being in the band with Lee um was um invaluable in the sense of like we were four dudes who had access to spaces that you have access to based on the fact that hardcore is a male dominated sort of genre at that particular point in time, and we got to kind of see firsthand how that affected um, somebody identifying as female coming into that scene and claiming space in that scene. And what was happening, I'm going to trip over my words a little bit. So the 90s were this very political
Hmm.
time for hardcore. If you go back and look at Ebullition or bands like Downcast or Struggle or Spitboy or Los Crudos, is a very political time. And by 2000s, there's like this backlash to political hardcore where everything becomes like sort of like, let's be offensive for the sake of being offensive. And like, and the assistant is trying to exist in this particular space. And
Yeah.
um, being a female fronted band in that space during that time, it was very obvious that this was like something that was going to take a toll on Lee most of all. But I think for us, it was invaluable to be able to go through that and kind of I mean, we toured the United States twice and toured Europe once, and we did like countless tours like up and down the coast, just to see the shit that you would get just for being like a woman on stage in a band. It was unfortunate, and it was kind of strange to see it in like these like quote unquote progressive screamo circles sometimes too. I mean, we expected it from like the like hardcore kids that we'd sometimes get on shows with,
Yeah.
but to sort of like endure that among these like white belt screamo bands was also sort of like, wow, misogyny knows no bounds, you know?
Yeah.
So I think um, being in that band was like extremely educational and valuable and an experience that I like it was us in our 20s just trying to figure things out, and it's a volatile band, and you know like talking a lot before songs and putting long explanations in your CDs and all that stuff because it's like you're 20 and you're just trying to figure shit out, man.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
And you think you could change
uh
the world a little bit,
yeah,
at that age?
yeah,
Like,
there was such like an idealism, exactly, and that's where we were at, and
yeah.
I'm glad that we did that. If I could go back, maybe there were some things I could change, but like, I didn't really think about it that way as much anymore. I'm just
Yeah.
like, hey, that's who I was at 20 years old. What do you want from me? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. And it's, no matter where you go or what time it is, like there's always still those things in the scene that will find a way or take root, or like people who get comfortable and like do awful things, like we're always having some kind of reckoning or another.
Yeah.
And that's why it's always important to just keep talking about it. I don't care if people get tired of hearing it. Like I'm sure the people experiencing the brunt end of it are exhausted. So you can
Yes.
you can hear
Yeah.
about it for another night. It's fine.
Like
Like
I remember when the band came to an end and Lee just describing the exhaustion and sort of just saying like you could tell that she had cared so much about this thing that kind of showed her very little gratitude back.
yeah,
And and I think it was one of those things where I understood like why somebody would just be like, you know what? Maybe the hardcore and punk scene or whatever is just not for me and just walk away from it. Like it
yeah,
totally made perfect sense to me. So
yeah.
yeah.
No, fully valid. And I don't know if Lee's gonna wind up listening to this or not, but if there's any like minuscule consolation that, she could take from this is like the influence that being like presenting female, being femme, and like being the front person in a band and like holding that torch for like so many other femme presenting people in the scene who look to the assistant as like something that they're like they did that, so like I want to do that too. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't feel like much, but that it is like a very important precedent that was set, and I'm really sorry it cost her so much like pain. But if there's any small, minor, nothing consolation, that's the one, and it sucks that it came to that. And every day we can work harder to make things better for people who want to just exist
I
in this space and enjoy themselves.
I totally agree with what you just said. Absolutely. I'm glad that you were able to sum that up so eloquently because that's what I was thinking. Thank you.
Yeah, no, of
Yeah.
course. I mean, I've seen it too, and it's still hard for
Yeah.
our trans siblings, like our femme presenting siblings now, like it has not gone away. It's in some places it's better, and it's better in some places it's not, and it's especially with what's going on in this country, it's always something that's worth like fighting tooth and nail for on their behalf. Because again, if you're tired of hearing about it, imagine how exhausting it is to constantly be experiencing it. So
That was like one of the biggest takeaways I had from that
yeah,
experience was like I'm tired and I'm not even the one who's like
yeah,
like so it was yeah. She was very brave and it was really admirable throughout that whole band just
yeah,
to watch that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and to just fucking rip as hard as she did, like that's fucking that's sick.
Yeah, I mean there were some shows I was like, fuck, like she brought it,
Yeah, no, I
so
believe that. Uh, she had a lot to bring from the sounds of it. So, and so,
yeah.
we move into, I think in first person now, right?
Well, so like
Okay.
when the assistant breaks up, like
Mhm.
I am sort of in the same boat with Lee a little bit where I'm like, maybe we
Mhm.
should just like maybe this is it,
Yeah.
like yeah, like we have seen a real dark side to this whole thing. I mean, we've made some great friends and friends I'll have for the rest of my life through this. But at the same time, like I'm exhausted and like you just said, like I know I'm not even like the one who was bearing most of the brunt of this, but like and maybe it's just time to stop, like we just toured like for 3 years, like, probably did like about a month and a half per year. It was a whole lot, like
It is a lot.
and being like a political band that was very upfront about how we felt, there's a lot of well-meaning people who just wanted to argue with us. And like some of those arguments were great. And we made great friends through those arguments. And other arguments were just like grating and sort of just like, holy shit, like this person's just trying to devil's advocate the shit out of us right now. And it's just like, it just feels like this is never going to end. So it's like,
Yeah.
so it, it's hard because as much as we all like, we do want to have those conversations and we do want to learn and grow, like it is exhausting. And so there's like a cap sometimes that like maybe we should have implied on ourselves to say like, all right, it's
Enough's
3:30 in the
enough.
morning. Like
Yeah.
maybe we should go to sleep. Um, so like at that point, like I think I'm like, yeah, I should probably take a break from playing. And then like during the assistant, we had like people quit the band and leave the band and come back to the band. And like I think at one point it was just Ross who played drums, Lee who sang, and me playing guitar through 3 amps, just trying to like hold the band together. And when I started doing the 3 amps thing, I was kind of like, oh, well, maybe we don't need anybody else. We could just do this. Yeah, it'd just be the three, like. And so when the assistant came to an end, I was like, well, maybe it'd be kind of cool to like start a band where I did the 3 amps thing and just had like a singer and a drummer and just wrote the songs from scratch like that rather than trying to adapt songs that were written by 5 people into 3 amps, like
Yeah.
let's just do this thing where like we don't have a bass player or just like one guitar player playing through 3 amps. We write the songs that way and just sort of, it's not going to get too intense. Let's just do this thing.
Hmm.
And we did This Ship Will Sink, and it lasted a year. I think it lasted like about a year, and we did a full U.S. tour. We put out some stuff, and it's strange because even though it just lasted a year, and it was like, you know, uh, this sort of thing where I probably shouldn't have done it. I should have taken a rest.
Yeah.
I still once in a while I'll listen to that EP, the self-titled EP, and I'm like, um, like I broke my wrist like right after the band broke up, and I was never able to really play guitar the same way again. And I listened to
Shit.
that I listened to that This Ship Will Sink Pink EP, and I'm like, man, I was like playing guitar. Like I was like really playing guitar at that point.
Yeah,
Like,
that's an insane record.
um, it just hits on all the points I've ever wanted to hit on musically. And I think like Jason kind of laid down lyrics in a way that were you knew what the song was about. That's another thing I was always into. I was never one for like artsy abstract sort of uh like lyrics from like my bands personally. I always just kind of wanted to like use the music as a vehicle to get a point across. And
Right.
that EP just is like, the perfect blend of all that stuff. And yeah, the band broke up and I went snowboarding, I think, for the first time and broke my wrist and was
Yeah.
never able to play guitar again.
Damn.
um, yeah. Yeah, and then we started in first person.
Hmm.
And that was another band with this woman named Vanessa. She was playing drums, and it was interesting to see the reaction that people had to Vanessa because drums,
Hmm.
especially at that point, were such a routinely male dominated instrument. Like you were seeing some bands with like non-male people as like the front person sometimes,
Yeah.
and that was sort of like, but to have like a band where the drummer was this like, you know very I know I love Vanessa. I hang out with her still like to this day. But Vanessa is basically, born in Brooklyn Heights, Puerto Rican, more than anyone I've ever met in my life, and just loud and proud and sort of like
Right.
New York hardcore was like a big part of her growing up.
Yeah.
and and she just had like, this like presence about her,
Mm.
and where like we would play, and I think dudes were a little intimidated by her, by like this like New Yorker, she just
Yeah.
was like quintessential New Yorker, and she just had it. And I think that she was the kind of person that like if there were going to be dudes that were going to like have a problem with her being in these male dominated spaces, like she was going to get up and just be like, all right, bring it, like
Yeah.
she was like, and and it was interesting to like watch that. I think one of the things that she pointed out to me though, and this was kind of, I can't, I'm not a gender studies major in any way, and I don't pretend to have like accurate data about this. But when we would play with other bands that had female members, and as guys in the band, we would think, oh, cool, like these are our people, like we're going to make friends with these people.
Yeah.
And Vanessa was always sort of like, what's the word? Like she would always point out, like, hey, did you notice that like the woman from that band would not talk to me? Or did you notice
Oh.
that the woman in that band told you guys good job, but not me? And she sort of pointed out
Mm.
that like in some circumstances there was this sort of like competitive thing happening. And or sort of like this like Vanessa being like, 100% like Brooklyn tough and gritty
Right.
didn't fit this like female sort of trope of like the girl in the hardcore band, and like
Mm.
and that was really interesting for her to point out, and like really interesting for us to see.
Yeah.
um
I mean, that's was there's a article that quotes Stevie Nicks recently, or it was like an interview she did where she talks to, I think like Katy Perry, or she talks about a conversation she had with Katy Perry like over a decade ago, where Katy Perry's like talking to her and she's like, "Oh, I don't have internet on my phone." And Katy Perry's like, "Well, how do you keep up on your rivals?" And she's like, "What do you mean rivals?" She's like, "Other like female singers and stuff. Like, how do you keep tabs on like your
oh
rivals?"
wow.
And she's like, I don't have the internet, so I have friends that are also
Oh
female
no.
singers." And it's like one of those things where because of like how, I guess the broader thing I'm getting at is like, I guess because there is like a cultivation of this idea of like women being pit against each other in spaces
Yes.
that is like its
Yeah.
own form of internalized misogyny. I guess like I could see that happening to her, and that sucks that it does.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially in this scene. You'd think like again, it's like one of those things where you hear it, and if you haven't experienced it or seen it firsthand, you'd be like, there's no way that's true. But
Yeah.
unfortunately a real thing.
And it's, it's crazy because it's like I would not have this sort of education had I not like done these bands with them, and like
Mm,
uh I would have just been like, hey, we're all on the same team, cool,
yeah.
like I so yeah, I think what you're saying is exactly right. I think that's, but I've again, you've explained exactly what what I was thinking. um yeah, like so that being in that band with Vanessa was definitely and like I think like sort of like having that sort of lens to see things through. So it's like I think sometimes people talk about, people who aren't female or female identifying or femme like me.
Mm,
Sometimes I see these people talk about the female experience in a very like monolithic way,
yeah.
and it's like, well, I've been in a band with two different women who have had like very different experiences. You know what I mean? And um, so yeah, it's definitely left a mark on me to like, there's always these things to consider,
Mm,
and sort of like look out for, and also just sort of like make sure that you're not falling into those traps yourself. You know what I mean? Like that's
yeah.
so, Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's really awesome. And I guess makes sense why it's so easy to connect with your music all the time. Because it sounds
Yeah.
like you are willing to honor the experience of many other people who aren't on you. And you get that a lot in the scene, and I think that's what makes this music so appealing to other people, is people who like write from a place of personal experience, but also are it I don't know, sometimes it comes across in a way that it's like, well, this isn't supposed to be it's my experience in an exclusionary kind of way. It's like very much like a recognition of a shared experience in a number of
Absolutely.
ways.
I mean,
So
it's like honestly, I could go back and talk about each one of those bands we just talked about in regards to like what was happening in my life at the time and what what I was dealing with, or like how I wasn't dealing with the trauma that I had from growing up the way that I did, or like where I was in this stage of like going to a therapist and dealing with that trauma. But it's like
yeah,
at 46 years old, the things that like I think are most valuable that I remember from those bands are what I've learned from the people in those bands. You know what I mean? And I I try not to like think of those bands as like a documentation of like my life per se, but just a documentation of like I got to like meet these people and learn these things, you know what I mean? And so that there's like a it's 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 just like a different sort of way to think about it, because like I guess I could harp on like, oh man, I wrote these lyrics when I was 18 and they don't they sound really corny and melodramatic now. Like I could think about that, but
right.
like I would rather think about how cool it was to like have these experiences where I met new people and learned new things, you know, like that's I'd rather just hold on to that instead,
Yeah.
you know,
I
like
mean,
'cause,
that's the thing that's much more wonderful to carry forward with you and to recognize and the other thing. Because at the end of the day, like, what do we all I don't know anyone who started playing in DIY that was like, this is my ticket to the big show, guys. I start in basements and I'm playing stadiums. It's like, no, people wanted to play music, but more the music was actually just like a vehicle for community. And the
yeah,
community is what keeps people coming back. Like the music's awesome, don't get me wrong, but you can listen to an album at home or in your car, or even go to the show and just leave, sticking around and hanging out and, talking shit with strangers or people you see at shows all the time is like the one of the greatest parts about being in all this.
absolutely. I mean,
Uh,
in 2024, if I wanted to like write music at home, I totally could and just stay home and write music and put it up online.
yeah, right.
But
You could do an Enya and just never
yeah,
appear.
but it's like, what's that, you know? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's a great like creative outlet, and
Hmm.
but yeah, I feel like the music, right? Writing music has always been a vehicle to achieve those things that you just discussed, you
Yeah.
know?
No, absolutely. And we don't I'm sure, you don't try to show favoritism to any of your projects or anything. One of my favorite things you've ever done, we're about to talk about right now, and that's fucking Black Kites. Because
Oh,
I
wow.
I
Okay.
went to go see the You and I reunion, and then I was like, oh, he plays in this band too, and then you guys played, and I was like, this is the sickest shit I've ever seen
Oh,
in my entire life. It
wow.
was
Thank
so
you.
cool. Oh my God, I love Black Kites.
Oh my
My friends
goodness.
actually won't let me talk about it anymore. I've like we'll talk anyone's ear off about it. So like
I'm sorry to Elias's friend.
no, don't apologize to them. They get to hear about it even more now.
Oh goodness.
But but yeah, I love Black Heights, and I would love to hear about the story of like how the band came together,
Wow.
and like
Okay.
yeah, all that.
Yeah, so like the way that Black Kites came together was did like three years or so in first person
Right.
with Vanessa and Ben, and I think my friend Rob was in the band towards the end. And then when that band kind of came to an end, it was like, all right, like maybe this time I'll take a break, you know. And but there was always that thing in the back of my head, like I only got a year out of This Ship Will Sink, and the thing that was so great about This Ship Will Sink is there was only three of us, um, and for songwriting there was only like two of us, like in terms of writing the music, and then like for writing the lyrics, it was just kind of like, okay, the song's done. Now it's your turn to, write your part. So like writing songs was extremely efficient with a two-piece instrumentalist band. You know what I mean? So I was like,
Yeah.
well, I might want to do that again at some point, but like, um, like why not just like start a band around home and just like really, really like low pressure and just kind of do a band. And um, this was this is another thing that was big before like Reddit or sort of like social media was like the locality of a scene. You'd have like internet message boards that were like local to just that particular state or that particular town. And so there was one that was like a New Jersey punk and hardcore board. Now that's like something that you don't see now that I think about it. Like you don't see that at all anymore. But like
Mhm.
this was a thing. Like I think there was like a board for like Syracuse, New York. There was a board for Los Angeles. There were different, and these weren't all from the same service or anything like that. It was like different people were managing these boards under different services and stuff like that. It was
Yeah.
extremely DIY. Um, so there was like a New Jersey hardcore and punk one, and I had posted that I was interested in doing a band. And there was this guy, Jeff, who had come to a lot of shows that I went to. He had come to see the assistant a bunch. And I always like knew him as like, kind of like, I don't know what the word is. Like, this is so strange to say in 2024, but it's hard to just understand what the climate was back then. Um, Back then, like misogyny and sort of like homophobic language was, I don't want to say the norm in the hardcore scene, but certainly acceptable and certainly sort of like didn't get somebody canceled. And it baffled the shit out of me. Like I would
Yeah.
just be like when I would go to start a band, I would just be like, well, man, there's not really like a lot of opportunities for me to start a band because I'm going to get into a room with this guy and then he's going to say some fucking off the wall comment about something and I'm just going to be like, I'm out.
Yeah.
But Jeff, the guy who sang for Black Heights, was this guy who I had seen him play in a band, and he always had like good things to say. And there were shows where he would explain songs that were about like homophobia, and he would explain songs about sexism. And I was like, this guy's like putting the flag in the sand right here, in this amongst this like scene of kids who like think that this is really uncool, and like I. I don't know. There's like I'm way into this, you know what I mean? The thing was when a band like the Assistant did that, it would be like we would get like raked across the coals.
Yeah.
Jeff had this sort of personality where he'd say these things and say them in a very like he was very convicted. Um, but like all the hardcore dudes would still be like, "Yo, Jeff's cool,"
Yeah.
and I was like, "I don't get it." And it was like kind of like Jeff's charisma, and I kind of thought like, wow, there's something there. Like this kid can like reach that side of things. And so he reached out to me and said, "Hey man, if you ever want to like if you ever need somebody to play in your band, like just get in touch with me." And I was like, "All right." And what happened was there was this guy Jay in town who played drums, and Jeff was friends with him, and I kind of seen Jay around but didn't I had never talked to him. And we all got in the same room and we started playing, and then we realized that all three of us were straight edge, and we were like, "Oh man!" Like we had all dreamed of doing like like a non-traditional straight edge band. Like we didn't want to be like a straight edge band that wrote a bunch of like fast hardcore songs about getting stabbed in the back, which is like this like
Yeah.
quintessential trope of like the late 80s, early 90s, like straight edge bands.
Yeah.
So we were like, let's be a straight edge band, but like let's do this like weird blend of like drop tuned hardcore, screamo, punk, like whatever we want to do, and we were on board. And like those guys, I was older than them. I was probably like maybe like 10 years older than them.
Mhm.
Those guys were so like mature for their age, so ahead of where I was when I was their age. Um, totally, totally just like self-aware. And one of the best things was to tour with them because I would get like really anxious and like worry about, where we were going to stay and like if the kids we are going to stay with were going to be assholes or like what we are going to deal with. And those two guys would like
Right.
comfort me and calm me down in a way that like it was amazing. Like to this day, like I admire those guys so much, and like I still talk to both of them. Like they're such great people.
Yeah.
Being in that band was like, yeah, that was a gift. Like those guys just were like two of the best people to be in a band with.
That's
We got to
so
go
incredible to
to
hear.
yeah,
I'm
like
not gonna lie to
it,
you. That's awesome.
it was so strange too because it was like we went from we did like two small tours where we did like New Jersey out to like Milwaukee and we would do like I don't know like 9 days or 10 days or something like that. And then we did 3 weeks overseas. And it was like, how did we go from doing like 10 days in the Midwest to doing like 3 weeks overseas? But yeah, those guys, man. Oh, yeah. That was a time like they came to me at a time in my life when I'm just a better person for having gotten experienced that band with them. They were just like such good people. So
Yeah,
um
that's so sick.
in terms of songwriting, like we all liked like Rorschach. Um
I could tell a little
I
bit.
I liked groundwork a lot. Like
Mm.
yeah, there was just a lot of that like heavier hardcore stuff. And then we also liked like tragedy and His Hero's
Right.
Gone and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
Jeff was a huge Touche Amore fan as well, so some of that would get thrown in there. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was great.
That's so sick to hear. Just because I didn't know I could love the Black Kites anymore, but here we are now.
Wow.
I mean,
Thank
just
you.
like I apologize for framing it this way. Like that your like Black Kites was like deliciously heavy. Like it was like when you eat like something that's like so sweet, it surpasses being gross and goes like right back to being incredible and delicious. Like
We used to call it tastefully heavy. So, like that's
that makes sense. I mean, the way you guys came together was just incredible. The drumming, like your guitar work, like Jeff's vocals are
oh yeah.
he's still like one of my favorite vocalists I've ever heard on like any
Me too.
project. Like just
Absolutely.
that's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
And they say that there's a big suffering, but what's so small that you can sacrifice? All these lives I love to build from scratch, and we should thank them when they throw us out.
Jeff plays in a band called Big Heads now,
Mm.
and Jay plays drums in a band called Concealed Blade.
Ooh, that's a great name for a band.
So yeah,
Big
check them out.
Heads. All right, Big Heads and Concealed Blade. Check it out, guys. That's incredible. Glad to hear they're still making music.
They are,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So God, I just wish we could talk about every single project of yours, but I just don't want to. I honestly, if we could have like a 4 hour conversation, I'd do it. But Rob would kill me just with the editing alone. So I we'll jump ahead a little
Sure.
bit. We're gonna get into more contemporary times. I also would like to comment. I don't know I don't even maybe know if you've clocked this or not, but anyone who's maybe taken a quick stroll through like your Discogs page, those years where you're like, maybe I'll take a year off has never happened. You've literally
Yeah,
been a part of or worked on multiple projects every single year for the last like 25, 26, however many
yeah,
years. Like
yeah.
maybe your vacation's due now. Not that I want to take you away from the scene, but I think you've earned like at least a good rest. But yeah, dude, you have like the most prolific discography I think we've ever featured on this show. Like absolutely. And so we'll jump over some also incredible bands that we're sadly not going to get to cover just for the sake of time. But like you know, hundreds of AU. Like we're fast forwarding a little bit. How does hundreds of AU start to slowly form?
Oh, so I'm in Albany at that point, 2017,
Right.
and I finally find two people in Albany, Zach and Terry, who agree to play in a screamo band. They're like, "Yeah, I guess we'll play in your screamo band." Like, it's
Your
very
so-called
like,
screamo band?
yeah. And so like,
Yeah.
I write some songs, I bring them to them, and
Mm.
it's kind of not their thing, but they're like, yeah, okay, like, we'll do this.
Right.
And of course, because it was kind of really not their thing, it didn't really last very long. I think maybe like 6 months later, they're like, yeah, they're not really feeling this, and
Mm.
I could see it. It's just like to Albany, it's sort of like not music that was really popular around here, and
Right.
it's still not popular around here. And
Mm.
so I figure, okay, like the band's done. But at that point, I had booked two shows, one in Brooklyn and one in New Jersey, and I
Mm.
didn't want to cancel those. So Justin, who had sang for You and I,
Mhm.
and at the time I was in a band with him called New York in '64, which is like an instrumental prog band, sort of.
Mhm.
He was playing guitar for that band, and he's like, hey, if you want to play the shows, like I'll learn how to play those songs on bass. And he's like, and I got this guy, John, who will play drums. And John will learn like the drums and we'll play those two shows. And I'm like, okay. So I build them as like our last two, and
Right.
I think I got together with John and Justin once. We ran through the set list like twice, and then we played the two shows, and it was awesome because I think the first show was with pre Nova Lascara. They were in a band called Virreal.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yep.
so the first show was with like Virreal and like a few more bands that I really liked a lot who were like from the New Jersey area.
Mhm.
And then the second show was with a bunch of friends bands, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. And we got done with those shows, and John and Justin were like, "Hey, man, you sure you want this to be the last ones?" Because like, I was like, "Yeah, I'm not driving from Albany down to New Jersey to be to be in this band. Like, this is just like." And they were like, "Well, you could think about it. Like, maybe we, like." And yeah, it just kind of got like we got a second guitar player. It was this guy Paul, who I was in this band called Hail Mary with Paul for a little while, and
Right.
Paul again is one of those guys like John, like Jay and Jeff, where being in a band with Paul is just like a very inspiring uh thing to witness. Like he's just this guy who loves music, and his passion and drive for music is just so inspiring and makes you want to play music more and makes you want to play music better. And who better to be in a band with than somebody like that? And so it
Mhm.
was like Paul, Justin, and John in this band, and I was like, yeah, okay, fine. And funny enough, the way that we ended up like playing shows in that configuration was Ryan Slauson, who sings for a band called Sanagi, and also plays drums in a band called Closer.
Mm.
Closer was doing their record release, and they asked us to play, and that was the first show back with like this lineup that was like the non-Albany lineup of like people.
Right.
And we played a weekend that weekend with Closer, and it was like, okay, this is a band, all right, So yeah,
The good times kept rolling.
so that's been like my primary band, I think now for like since 2017. So
Mhm.
it's been like 7 years of playing in that band.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah,
That's so sick.
yeah.
Hell yeah. And so, I mean, clearly you had the itch to get back into hardcore because like Spirit Killer comes around and like
Oh
what is
yeah.
how does Spirit Killer start forming together?
So when I moved to Albany, I briefly played drums. Say briefly, it was about 2 years. I played drums in this band that kind of sounded like His Hero's Gone, sort of crust sort of stuff. That band was called Scavengers, and
Mm.
the guitar player of that band was like always talking. We were always talking about our mutual love for like '90s hardcore, like older Snapcase, Threadbare, Unbroken, like bands like that. And like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if somebody started a band that sounded like that? And we would talk about it. And then all
Right.
these years later, he hit me up and was like, hey, like I think I got this guy who can play drums. Do you want to try and do that '90s hardcore band? And I was like, yeah, okay. And we got in a room and played, and it was like, wow, this is great. Like this is awesome. And it was weird to be able to like drive 20 minutes from my house to have band practice because up
Right.
until then I was either driving 2.5 hours to New Jersey
Right.
or like 4 hours to Philadelphia to practice with Seisha. So it was really strange to just be able to have band practice be like not a whole weekend event. It's just like,
I would say you've earned it at this point.
yeah, it was great. So Spirit Killer quickly just like we just gelled together. We got this guy Charles who used to play in a band called Endicott in the OOs, and he sings for us and just like really creative with his vocal style. So it wasn't. I think that was the thing too. Like he showed up and sang, and I was like, oh, he's not just this guy who's like screaming into a mic. He's
Yeah.
doing like harmonies and double tracking vocal parts, and like, it was so crazy. So yeah, we just gelled together, and we're all old, and we all kind of like have the same vibe where it's like, okay, this is cool to do a band, but we all have jobs and work
Right.
and family life and stuff. And so yeah, that we wrote an album. It's coming. The pre-orders for that album go up on December 6th.
Hell yeah.
It's
All
coming out
right.
on Protagonist and Immigrant Son, and a new song called Falling Man is coming out on November 12th. That's going to drop from the album, and I'm just like excited to have that see the light of day. The curious thing about playing in a band like that is you do get asked to play shows with like moshy or hardcore bands, and
Right.
it's just kind of it's interesting to see like what that scene is like
Yeah,
these
what that
days.
contemporary scene looks like. Yeah, it's changed, but it also has not whatsoever. So it's like,
Yeah, it's like we'll play with a bunch of those bands, and there's the big like horseshoe in the middle of the floor where like three guys are supposed to dance or whatever, and
yeah.
like all of the bands play who are like these moshy bands, and dudes will be like beating the shit out of each other, and then we'll play, and we're a little bit more like I don't know, like post-hardcore-ish almost sounding at times. And they just kind of stand there.
They're
Like,
dumbfounded.
yeah. But I mean, something must be working because they buy a bunch of merch and people seem to be friendly to us. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
I mean, it's sick. As long as it sounds sick.
Thank you.
I will say that's the positive change in the hardcore scene is that it's not just like, where's the fucking riffs? It's like, they're like, oh, this is
Yeah.
cool. Like, I'll listen to this in my car. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish there were riffs. No, I'm just kidding. Y'all got riffs. Y'all got riffs for sure. Some Black Heights riffs, even a little bit. I
I
heard.
I kind of think of it like it's like Black Heights if Black Heights was tuned to like a standard tuning, you know what I mean? It kind of sounds a little bit like that, I guess, at times. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You've got your unction in there, like the very essence of what you put into the universe. I
Oh,
jokingly
thank you.
refer to your projects across the years as the Tom Schlatter Extended Universe. So that's catching on. I don't care what Rob says. Um, so of course we can't move into the next segment of questions without wrapping up like your long, wonderful spanning of career without talking about when the screamo bat signal went up and you got asked to come and fill in for, or start playing with Zaysha. So
Yeah.
how did that must have been an insane feeling. I mean,
Well, there's like there's like um there's the part of me that has been, I met Steve Roach, who plays drums for Seisha now, and he played drums for Off Minor, and back in the 90s he played bass for Seisha. Um, I met him in 1997 or 98,
mhm.
and he's recorded almost all of my bands, and I've watched him move from he used to be homeless. He would crash on people's couches, and then he lived in his rehearsal space, and now he owns multiple properties in Philadelphia and has a kid, and he's married. And I've watched him grow up, and he's watched me grow up. And so there's a part of me that's just like, oh, Steve asked me to play in his band. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, and I would say kind of the same. I didn't have such a close relationship with Colin and Billy over the years as I did with Steve, but Colin and Billy had this sort of effect where I spent a lot of time with them in the 90s playing shows with them. And then when I showed up to the first sort of like Seisha practice, just I got out of my car and Billy was walking down the street towards the house, and I got out and we intersected, and it was like just felt like 1998. Like not that we felt like we were in 1998, but more
right.
like we were picking up where we left off with no problem.
Yeah,
It was like that with Colin too. Adam, I'd only met Adam like very briefly because he had quit the band like right before we really started playing with them a lot.
mhm.
But Adam was like there was no essence of like we're doing you a favor by letting you join our band. It
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, thank you for learning these songs and saving our asses because we have 5 shows booked and we didn't know what we were going to do.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
um, Adam was all gratitude. And I just, so there's that part of me that's just like, I'm just joining a band with my friends.
Yeah.
And that's how I thought about it for a very long time until maybe like we got on, I think it was like the second show we played or the third show we played. We got on stage at a matinee show in New York, and there was like 600 people there.
Yeah.
And this guy was in front, and he had his deep Irish accent. And he started telling me about how he flew from Ireland to come to the show. And I was like, oh, like I'm playing guitar in Seisha, like, and like this guy doesn't even know that I'm like the fill-in guy. He's just like talking to me like I've been in the band the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's when it sort of felt like I got a little tinge of that, like what am I doing? Like am I gonna fuck this up?
Oh,
So
shit.
there's like the two parts of me, like the two worlds that are fight that these 2 points of view.
Mm.
I think after we played the first initial set of shows, Adam came up to me because they had kind of told me like, hey, can you save us? We're in a jam. We have these shows booked. We don't
Right.
want to play them as a 4-piece. Like, do you think you can play them? There was 5 shows booked. There were like New York for 4 shows and Philadelphia for one.
Yeah, I went to one of the New York shows.
Oh, you went to one of the New York shows. Okay,
Yeah,
great. And I was like, yeah, and that was it. And then I
right.
think it was like after, I would say maybe after the second or third New York show, I was driving Steve back to his friend's house, and he was like, "So, me and the guys were talking, and like, what'd you think about like, like maybe like West Coast or something? Like you think you'd be into that?" And I was like, "Yeah, like we can talk about it." Like, and then I'll never forget this. The end of the Philadelphia show, I'm sitting there and I'm packing up my guitar, and Adam walks up to me and he's like, "Hey, we want to do this again, but we're not going to do this without you. So, like, well, do you think you'd be up for it?" And like, I remember playing it real cool and just being like, "Yeah, man, like, yeah, like let's keep in touch, you know." And then he walked away, and I like had to go in the bathroom. I think I kind of like was really emotionally moved by that. You know what I mean? That like, uh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I went and told Adam that like later on. Like,
yeah,
I told him like the real story of what was happening when he
right.
talked to me.
The real truth of it,
Um,
which is important.
but here we are, like 2 years later, and now playing with Seisha is such a feels like an extended family of people that I've just been playing with for 2 years, and there's nothing strange about it. It feels totally like those guys. There's a level of like security you have and trust that you have in people when you're on stage with them. Like we're all gonna do our thing, right? No one's gonna like misrepresent what we're trying to do here, right? And I feel like we all have that trust for each other,
Mm,
and that's a remarkable thing to have. And to be, I think there was this point where we did the accounting, and like the amount of money that we were able to raise for things like
Border
the
Angels.
Pennsylvania, yeah, like Border Angels, Pennsylvania Abortion Fund, Trans Defense, like that's money. Like we're talking like money that I would never be able to do. I would never be able to like get working my nonprofit job that I work right now. You know, like
Yeah,
this is like stuff that like these are the donations that like I'm only able to make because I'm playing guitar in a band. And like that's again, that's a lot. Like if you told me 20 years ago Seisha's going to play shows and be able to donate all this money, I would be like, from where? Where's this money coming from? You know, but like, so it's wild to hand a check to somebody like Border Angels and be able to be like, yeah, like when we gave the check to the Chicago New School, it was like, wow, like we're able, like this is like that we
Screamo did
can do
this.
this. Yeah, like so there's like yeah, there's just such a surreal aspect to that. I think more so than any sort of like lore about being in Satia. I think that
Mm,
the like surreal aspect is that wow, like there is money exchanging hands to like that we're able to give to charities and like non-profs right now that like we never would have been able to do. So
right.
that's amazing. It's great.
Yeah, that's it's so incredible. And like I remember when Station was coming back, like obviously everyone was psyched out of their minds and like so excited. Just to have it happen is just like it was something that I had been like, this will never happen. I'm making peace with it. Like I'm never gonna get to see that band. That's fine. So when it happened, I was like, already out of like I was, as excited as I was for when I got to see you and I. And I was like, this is incredible. And then to have them be like, we're donating to like these charities, I was like, it got me emotional because it's like, what is this all even about if not like community, like we were discussing earlier, and like using this music as a vehicle for like really positive change in the world and like to not just like spread the community, but to like also be like, well, our scene is a community, but we in the community are within the larger community of our cities, of like other people who are marginalized that share space with us, but also are in these other spaces. Like to see like a band like Seisha who is so deified basically in like this genre to go and say like, hey, we're gonna take this money and we're gonna give it to these people. And like that's what this is actually about. And to put that message to like young kids and like older people and like everyone is just like I was moved beyond words. Like it was just the most incredible thing. And just, Billy comes on and talks about the cause, and then they have a person from the cause come and talk about it. Like it's just like holy fuck. Like it's just the coolest thing in the world. Like genuinely. Like I don't care if I sound corny or gushy or whatever. Like
No, this is like,
that's what it's about to me. That's what it's always been about to me. And to see that really like reinforced by like such a legendary band that like so many people love and hold very near and dear to their hearts is just like holy shit, like what more could you ask for? And like
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, like we all grew up like what you said, sort of like going to shows. I remember like when we were kids, like um a show would be $5 or $4 with a can of food. And you'd bring a can of food and you'd put it in the box. And then at the end of the show, the box would, go down to the food pantry. That was just like a normal thing that we did at shows. And then if you wanted to get ambitious and like raise money for something, you tried to get like bigger bands or do a fest or something. And like we always associated hardcore with like that spirit, with I mean, like with like that community aspect. And so to get to do it on this like much larger scale was that was an opportunity that like was, like you couldn't not do that. You know what I mean? It was just like, wow, like now it's gonna, instead of a can of food, this is gonna be like a fucking big check. This is
yeah,
awesome.
right.
Like,
Like oh, instead of a
so
Campbell's soup, it's like computers for like
yeah,
the youth center.
yeah,
Like
exactly. So yeah, and like I also just think it's cool when like we meet people who just have no idea, like the people from these nonprofit groups who talk to us who are just like, I don't know what a Seisha is, I don't know what screamo is, but like this is awesome. You guys are
yeah,
doing this. This is so cool. Like, and I love that. It's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's truly wonderful. Well, thank you, Thomas, for humoring me. And like literally going through your entire career
Yeah.
and talking about this. So now, we'll get into like the more like regular questions, I guess I should say, like
Sure.
towards the end of
Sure.
the show. So I
Okay.
know this will probably be pretty hard, but we always like to ask, do you have a favorite show or tour memory that you can think of?
Oh goodness.
I know
Um,
that's hard after having so
yeah,
many incredible shows, I'm sure, but
it is. It is. You know, so tour is very different from what like you're 21 years old, 22 years old, and you're touring, and like you're especially it's like the early OOs, late 90s, and you're a vegan, you're eating a Taco Bell or Subway and just food that has no nutritional value pretty much, and you're sleeping on floors,
yeah,
and now like I tour, and veganism has come quite a long way, and I can eat pretty nutritiously on the road, and like,
yeah,
and I'm a adult with a job, and we can, if we don't have a place to stay, we can all spring for a hotel and like sleep on a bed, and like, so touring has definitely changed. So it's like there are some of those like things that happened when I was a kid that at the time were just like, holy shit, this is terrible. That now I look back and I'm like, that story is hilarious. Like we would just be in like terrible like conditions, like sleeping on the floor with like bugs crawling on us and stuff.
yeah, yeah,
um, but like, yeah, it would be really hard to like pick any one show or experience out of it. I think it's all just been such a trip.
yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's so ironic to do this a day before my birthday and
I know.
like me like thinking about it like this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
That's so random that like making you relive your whole life.
Is that why you postponed this like one 1 week.
Yeah, I actually found out when your birthday was. That's how deep my research went, but I didn't find any information on whether you'd actually left New Jersey or not. So my journalism is very scattershot.
It's skewed. It's skewed.
Yeah. But no, that's totally fair. I mean,
Yeah.
there's like I'm sure so many of those, but we always like to ask, and
Sure.
feel free to answer this as straightforwardly, unstraightforwardly as you want. What's the most illegal or dangerous thing you've ever done in your life that you're willing to admit on a very public podcast that may or may
Okay.
not have the FBI listening to it at this point?
Well, so for the bulk of the touring that I did in the early OOs, all we had was a Ford Aerostar minivan,
Sick.
and you can't quite possibly fit 5 people and a whole band's full of equipment into a Ford Aerostar minivan. But you can do it with some modifications, and those modifications were we took all the seats out of the van, we laid all the guitar cabinets down on the floor and all the guitar heads and some of the drum stuff on the floor. Then we put plywood on top of that, a mattress on top of that, and then everybody just laid down on top of the equipment with no seatbelts.
Yeah.
And we had some of the drums on top too. But basically, if we had gotten into a car accident in any sort of like, anything other than a fender bender, like it wouldn't have been good. We traveled cross country like that 3 times, just sleeping on top of amps. And I remember at one point the cops pulled us over and we just like hid under the blankets. We like closed the windows and hid under the blankets. And yeah, I mean that the thing, and there's probably some young people out there doing something similar to this where it's just kind of like you want to go on tour so bad and you know that you're not being very responsible by buying a $300 Dodge van or something like that, or you're not being very responsible by taking all the seats out of a van and sleeping on top. But it's like, you know what, we need to get to the West Coast and go on tour, and like we're gonna make some bad decisions on how we can get there, and it's not very safe. Like, so yeah, so definitely there were probably some modifications done to different vehicles throughout the years to just get a tour done for sure. Yeah.
Hey, you got to get to the gig no matter how it happens.
I mean, it's like that's about as crazy and illegal as you're going to get for somebody that's like been straight edge since they were like 15.
That's totally,
Like,
no, I get it.
like,
Yeah. No, I get it. Like, it's all good. That's definitely super dangerous. So I know that maybe either you think maybe it's a little tame or some other people think it's a little tame. Anyone who thinks it's tame, have you ever actually seen it, the aftermath of a car accident? Think about that, and then think about poor people just not having a seatbelt. Like that.
Absolutely.
For sure.
We were so dumb.
That's all right. That's part of your youth, right? Like just rolling the dice on the road.
I'll chalk it up to that. Right?
Yeah, we'll call it that. So I'm sure you've been waiting for this one. Our favorite question, definitely Rob's favorite question. Tom, assuming you're not a pacifist, if you could punch anyone in the face as hard as you possibly could with no repercussions whatsoever, who would it be and why?
Oh goodness. So when I moved here, one of the guys who played in that band, Scavengers, was really into MMA. And he saw that I wasn't doing very well with the move. I was having a lot of depression and homesickness. And he was like, come train with me.
Okay.
And I had never gotten into a fight. I'd never thrown a punch ever in my life. Like I pretty much am a pacifist for the most part. And he like starts training me on how to throw punches. And it was the fucking weirdest feeling to like throw a punch and like hit somebody. Like I was like, this is fucking weird.
Yeah.
So I've only recently, within the past like 8 years, learned how to actually throw a punch properly. So it's still kind of a new concept to me.
Okay.
Like, shit, man, there's just like so many punchable people. Like I've
very true.
There's like this like Buddhist sensibility in me that just wants to be like, no one deserves to be punched, but like there are some people that deserve to be punched, and
Just a
like
little one.
there's any number. I mean, it could probably just go through like the whole fucking Republican how many times a day do you want to like punch Lindsey Graham in the face or Ted Cruz in the face? Like it's like it happens pretty often. I mean, just pick one. I
Yeah.
would just line them up and just say, Tom, that one, and I'll do it. It's whatever. Like
Yeah,
I would do any of them. Like it's
fair enough. No, absolutely. Then that's a totally fair answer. It's yeah, who hasn't thought about, Lindsey
exactly.
Graham, Mitch McConnell, you
Yeah.
could
Oh
really,
God.
oh God, yeah. Yeah. Pick a Republican Party member.
Yeah.
Um, so, we like to ask a lot of us don't really believe in it anymore. And I think Rob's kind of skewing more in this direction now too lately. Um, what music do you listen to that like could be considered a guilty pleasure, like something that maybe it feels like it's maybe cringy or something where you're like, oh man, I love this stuff, but I know this is rough.
Ooh, all right. Um, there is some like alternative rock from the 90s that I chalk up to just childhood nostalgia.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say it's necessarily cringy, but let's just say like maybe it hasn't aged well. I still like it a lot. And
Yeah.
so I'll give you like two examples. Like it's a band called the Afghan Wigs from the
Okay.
90s. They have a album called Gentleman, which start to finish is an amazing album, but like
Hmm.
lyrically, it's kind of cringy.
Yeah.
I really love the whole album, Live Through This. I don't know if you've ever
Yes,
listened to Live Through This.
I have. Yes. And the Afghan
Courtney
Wigs
Love.
actually,
What's that?
and the Afghan Wigs album actually.
Okay, all right. So you've listened to both.
Yeah.
You see how there's aspects to both of those albums where
Hey,
like if like you grew up with them, you're like, wow, like musically there's not a bad song on any of
yeah.
these albums. Lyrically though, it gets a little,
We've all grown up a bit since then.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm trying, you know what? I want to give Courtney Love and Greg Dully grace, you
Hmm.
know? Yeah.
That's fair. I mean, these are important albums to you. We can't always pick who our musical parents are sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Just like you can't
And
pick.
I try to keep that in mind when somebody tells me that they like something that I find absolutely cringy. I'm like, oh well, you grew
Yeah,
up when you grew up, you know. It's
that's true. Yeah. We all got one, you know.
yeah.
So you and feel free if you don't really feel like you have one, you can pass on this one too. But what would you say is your most unpopular musical take?
Oh, all right. I probably so I think that there's a lot of like you had to be there kind of stuff. And I think that that's a general sort of like theme that's been running through this conversation, wouldn't you say? That it's like
Yeah.
there's some bands, there's some music that like maybe you just had to be there and
Yeah, time and a
like
place.
so it's like, yeah, I don't think the Beatles are very good. I think the one that kind of gets me in trouble sometimes is like I can't get into Bad Brains at all.
Okay.
I can't get into Infest at all.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
There's like these like I don't like any Henry Rollins Black Flag.
Oh,
So
okay.
yes,
Yes. These are
like
spicy.
like like I the Keith Morris Black Flag I love.
Mm,
The Henry stuff I just don't really like. So it's like there's like these like seminal punk bands that like are very, they're like these like touchstone punk bands that
right.
people I understand why people think they're important, but
Mm.
I'm just like I tried, and like that's
Couldn't
just
do
like
it.
three. There's probably more examples like that, but it's just like three that like I could think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, totally fair. You will find a compatriot in me in hating the Beatles. I hate the Beatles.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not a fan. But um, so shifting a little bit, we always like to kind of close things out slowly with the question of like if you could give like the whole world a gift of some kind, it could be something tangible, it could be something intangible, like a concept or an idea, or like something like really material. What would it be and why?
Oh God.
I know it's a big one.
Who answers these questions? This is
You know,
this
we
is crazy. Um,
yeah.
No, I mean it's like I can't even really. I mean it's like there's this notion that like if everybody was like fed, clothed, and housed, would we all be okay? Would like, fed, clothed, housed, and taken care of from a health standpoint, or given like love and compassion and those things, like are there's this theory that says if we all have those basic needs, then there will not be any turmoil or strife or those sorts of things happening. But like it's hard to say if that's true or not because this hypothesis has never been put to the test.
Yeah.
And so like I guess I can naively say I would love to be able to give those things to everyone, but I don't know if it would have the effect I would want it to have, like
Hmm.
would we all be okay then? Like it's or would there be somebody who becomes the caricature of human nature and says, I need more than that person has because I'm more important. Like
Yeah.
would there be this unquenchable person so it's hard to
Hmm.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Hmm.
that's valid. And but I will put this to you, and there have been different studies over the years where people have been offered, like they've run programs where they give UBI basically like an extra $1,000 a month to families who are either experiencing some form of unhousedness, food insecurity, or like struggling in debt. And they did that I think for like a year. And I think there was like a significant percentage. Any percentage more than zero is going to be I'm going to consider significant. There's a significant percentage of people that were able to get on their feet and find housing, secure work, take care of their kids, like basically lift themselves out of like that realm of like poverty or close to poverty or potential homelessness. So I think it's a very real thing. And I too would love to see us try it someday. I think it would be
Yeah,
a lot more successful than people give it credit for, but um, you know, well, maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll live to see it.
that would be, yeah. I, I am very interested. I am very interested.
Yeah. So I mean, we like to ask this, and I'm gonna put it to you, Tom, because I gotta know, like after all these years of playing like music and like having all these like incredible bands and like doing these amazing things and like touring extensively, like what do you feel like's the next big goal or accomplishment for you? Like, a festival you want to play, a venue you want to play, band you want to
So,
do, like anything.
so it's funny. Hundreds of AU is going to be doing a record next year with a label that I don't think when's this going to come out? I probably can't talk about it right now,
Okay.
just yet. But anyway, we were on a Zoom call with some representatives from the label,
Ooh.
and they said, "What are your goals as a band?" And I
Like to
like
make
there
as
were,
much money as possible.
and uh, and I realized like with hundreds of AU, like I've achieved those goals, and those goals are we consistently get asked to play shows. We consistently get invited into spaces where 46-year-old people uh, normally aren't invited into because it's like screamo is a generally like young genre.
Hmm.
We get to play with young bands. We get to hear perspectives from people who are not us, who don't live our life, who live very different lives than us. We still, at 46 years old, get this education and perspective and sort of um, opportunity to be a part of this. And that, like, at this point at my age, like, that's my goal. And I'm already achieving that. And so that's what we said to them. We're like, like, that's our goal and we're achieving that. And we'd like to do that more. Can you, as a label, furnish that for us? and And they were like, absolutely, yeah. And
Oh,
we
what
were like,
the?
all right. Like, so,
Yeah, sure.
so yeah, I mean, it's like I don't know. There was just some point where where putting out records and going on big tours and doing all that stuff it just became such a backseat to like what was actually happening. like what I was actually getting to experience. And um I think all that crazy touring and like look at a band like um Habak. That band tours like incessantly,
Oh yeah.
and they are absolutely amazing. And I'm so happy to see that happen. Like I'm just like I've yeah, every time I think about that band, I'm just like, wow. Like uh, so for me, I think I get these goals out of like, like to meet a band like Habak and watch them be successful. Like that, that's like, it sounds weird, but that's a goal for me,
Yeah.
to like see good people get like their due. You know what I mean? And I feel like with a band like Masanera or Habak, like that's what I'm seeing. You know what I mean? And so
Absolutely.
that's just absolutely that's great. And if one of my bands could show up and be there and play and get invited, oh my God, like that's amazing. I'm so glad I could be there and do that,
Yeah.
so yeah, those, I mean, that's just how it is now, that's I love it. So
That's wonderful. And what a beautiful, beautiful sentiment for us to get to wrap up with.
awesome.
Tom, thank you so much for coming on. Before we completely close out, we like to offer this final space for you to plug your projects,
Sure.
shout out causes, give thank yous, whatever you want to do. This is your space to talk about what you'd like.
Yeah. Well, I think I first and foremost want to thank you. Um, it's absolutely um, humbling to get to be on like not just a phase. It's um, in a way to have written music over the years and just think like, you know, there's this notion in punk that you can't really be proud of what you're writing because that's not punk, like, but I think I have to learn to be like, hey, there's like somebody like Elias out there, like what I'm doing means like might have meant like some of this stuff might have meant a lot to him. And for me to be like, that was just punk, whatever, is like doing a disservice to what this means to Elias and what sort of like this music has done for my life, in terms of like I've met so many great people, gotten so much perspective, and um, so I just I don't necessarily have anything to plug. I mean, I'm playing in three bands. I'm lucky
Right.
enough to get to still do this. I'm getting asked to be on podcasts. Like it's fucking cool, man. Like there's a lot of great bands out there that we get to be friends with, we get to play with, a lot of great labels out there, a lot of great people out there. Um, it's so uh it's so hard sometimes to turn on the news and um, hear about and witness sort of like I want to say like such a polarization and such like a divisive environment where things like genocide are questioned and things like whether Nazis are bad is up for debate and like like it's very strange to me for those things to be up for debate.
Yeah.
Um, and it can make you feel extremely hopeless to participate in that space. And so having sort of like what I call the more reasonable world, of like punk and hardcore, where it's like nobody's debating whether what's going on is genocide. Nobody's debating whether Nazis are bad. It's like we all just fucking know, So it's like
Yeah.
um, to have this reasonable space where I feel like there's some level of sanity. Um,
Yeah.
God, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I think
imagine.
I I think my plug would just be, hey, like if you're allowing me to come to your shows or you're booking my bands in 2024, like thank you. And like I hope we keep doing it next year, and I hope you still let me be a part of this. So yeah. Yeah.
I have a feeling it's not going to be a tough ask for you,
Hopefully.
for for you. Well, Tom, seriously, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us and like, letting us do a deep dive into everything you've done and giving us your views on things and telling stories. We really appreciate you coming on, and we really appreciate that we get to celebrate someone like you who's been in the scene for so long and done so much, not just musically, but for like the community as well as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you, Elias. I hope that we cross paths again in the future, man.
Oh, I have a feeling we might.
All righty.
Oh, wait, that sounds real creepy. Hold on. Yeah,